Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up Wednesday. Yeah, and it is early. This is the early morning hours here. Sun's just coming up, and we're looking at our text from the book of Hebrews, the 12th chapter. You might recall that as we've been looking at it, and we'll look at it again next week too, the very final part of the book. We've had quite a lengthy journey through the book of Hebrews. Starting last year, we spent quite a few Sundays in it, and this year we're finishing up with four. Powerful, heavy theological stuff in there. Sometimes it's a little hard to follow because they use certain grammatical techniques, literary techniques, probably a better word for it, that help us get a grip on what it means to be faithful to God. And in this chapter 12, I read one commentator who put it this way, and I think it's a pretty good way to put it. It's like you're sitting back and watching a tennis match, and the ball is going this part of the court, that part of the court, this part of the court, that part of the court, back and forth, and that's what's happening, especially in our text for today, where you have all these images that are thrown at us that are contrasting images. Why is that happening? It's all because they're trying to describe what our lives of faith are like. And it can be a little ambivalent at times. It can be a little hard to understand. It's almost as if we have a foot in each of those sides of the court, like we're straddling the net, so to speak. Where do we belong? Well, we're kind of a part of both of those worlds. Although we're leaning toward the latter, the one that points us and shoots us toward the future hope that is ours in Christ. And you get that whole thing when you're looking, especially, well, there's a part of the reading that I don't think it's part of our reading for this Sunday, but it talks about Esau. You might recall that Esau was so hungry that Jacob kind of tricked him into selling his birthright to him by fixing him a really nice bowl of stew. Yep, and Esau said, "Yeah, I'll take it. Here, you can have my birthright. Give me that food." And God said, that wasn't such a good thing. It wasn't such a good thing that Jacob did either. But hey, Esau, what he did, gave up his birthright. There's nothing you can do about that. Not back in those days. Now you probably take the person to court for deception or something like that, but not back then. And what we're seeing in Hebrews is Esau is being depicted as the unfaithful one, the one who couldn't put his trust in what was to be, but was really focused on the immediate moment. This is what I want. And in our lives of faith, we can be that way too. We don't see the whole picture. We don't see what's down the road because we're blinded from seeing it because of what is right in front of us right now. And for those early Christians, what was in front of them was very difficult times, times of persecution. And we had that last week, excuse me, when we went through that whole series of people from the Old Testament that are upheld as people of faith, even though they never really received the fullness of the promise of God. They only looked at it from afar, but that's what drew them into lives of faith. They could put their hope and trust in a God who would ultimately fulfill those promises. And that's what we have in our text from Hebrews today. So don't be too confused by it. You're in chapter 12. I would start with verse 14 and go all the way to the end of the chapter. It can be a little tough reading at times, and there's some things in there a little hard to understand. But remember, for the people who are reading this, it's vitally necessary for them to be encouraged, to hang in there, that this is a journey that's at this point in time is a rough journey, but one in which God will be faithful to them. God will help them through, and all they need to do is just hang on in faith and in hope. What's really comes popping out at me is the contrast between Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. You might remember that Mount Sinai is where Moses received the Ten Commandments, but for the people, it was truly a place of fear. I mean, thunder, lightning, God's voice booming from up above. They didn't want to go anywhere near it. In fact, if any animal, like say your pet sheep or a cow, happened to wander near and touch that mountain, they would immediately die. I mean, that's how much fear was placed into the people. Mount Zion, on the other hand, that's the mountain on which Jerusalem is built. But the image here is the heavenly Mount Zion. That is where we will gather together in what's called this festal gathering and the assembly. Those are both terms in the Greek that are used for political type of gatherings, but now it's been transformed into a congregation of the faithful gathering together to sing God's praises. And in the end, that's what gets us through all these things. Our gatherings together, our assemblies, our festal get-togethers. So keep all that in mind. That is what's being encouraged here by the author of Hebrews, not only for the people back then, but it's something that can encourage you and me in our world today. Well, time to get rolling here. Got VBS coming up in just a few hours, and those kids are just excited for their festal gathering. God's blessings be with you this day.